But elections are won on the margins by a coalition of little things that hit people personally. Trump gets this. He feels your pain in the Kamala ran on democracy, which is the most important issue. But without the political skill to sell it, it added up to nothing. Meanwhile, Trump was running on, I'll make the go down. He never shut up about bad shower pressure, light bulbs, and low-flow toilets. When Chuck Schumer said in 2016 that for every blue-collar Democrat we lose in Western Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philly, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. Yeah, how'd that work out?
Bill Maher is ringing alarm bells, insisting his cherished Democratic Party is careening toward irrelevance, and he's not holding back. Maher claims the DNC is a pale echo of its past glory, and unless it recalibrates, it could vanish into political obscurity forever. His takedown was ruthless, witty, and downright hilarious, serving as a brutal reality check for the liberal elite. Wait until you see the comparison he makes later in this video. It perfectly illustrates why the party is on life support. If the leadership continues to ignore these flashing red lights, they aren't just losing an election, they are losing their soul.
I fear the Democratic Party is at risk of becoming a ghost brand, too. Like Sears, it used to be mighty and ascendant and popular. Sears once accounted for 1% of the entire American economy and 41% of the appliance market, and built the country's tallest tower. Democrats once controlled Congress and the Supreme Court, or at least competitive. But now, even at a time when President Trump is turning 250 years of democracy into jeans shorts.
Bill Maher has been scrutinizing the Democratic Party, and what he sees sets off major alarms for the future of the left. There was a time when the party was a juggernaut, beloved by the working class, leading major causes and packing arenas wherever it went. It felt alive, unstoppable, and full of energy, representing the heartbeat of the American spirit. Today, Maher argues that same party is barely recognizable to the average citizen. Once a unifying force, it now struggles to reach the very voters who once propelled it to victory in the Rust Belt and beyond. Its messaging is muddled, its priorities scattered, and its relevance increasingly questioned by those who feel abandoned by the coastal elite. This shift isn't just a minor glitch. It's a systemic failure that Maher believes is leading to a total brand collapse. Maher warns that unless Democrats reconnect with everyday Americans and embrace practical solutions, they risk becoming a shadow of their former self, a party remembered for nostalgia rather than actual impact. His critique is sharp, unapologetic, and true to form, laced with biting humor that cuts deeper than any political pundit's dry analysis.
The Democrats have their lowest rating in 35 years, 63% unfavorable. What happened? I don't know. What happened to Sears? It used to be synonymous with the American dream because it kept faith with what the customer wanted. Did we love Sears? No, but that was besides the point. You just went. It was like an Avatar movie that sold tools.
Bill Maher says the Democratic Party has wandered far from its roots, and the fallout is becoming impossible to ignore even for the most loyal supporters. Once the champion of the working class, the party has lost touch with the very voters who built its power and gave it a reason to exist. Maher insists they've abandoned the everyday American, chasing radical agendas that feel distant, disconnected, and frankly, alienating to the common man. Their message no longer inspires. It lectures, and that tone is driving people away in droves. What once sparked hope and loyalty now breeds indifference or outright frustration among those who just want to pay their bills and keep their families safe. As a result, voters are turning away, seeking alternatives that actually speak to their struggles rather than their privilege. The numbers don't lie, and the demographic shifts Maher points out are enough to make any strategist lose sleep. Maher warns that if Democrats stay this course, they risk more than losing elections. They risk fading into total political irrelevance. His critique is sharp, relentless, and packed with his signature humor, acting as a wake-up call the party simply cannot afford to ignore if they want to survive the next decade.
It used to be where your family bought everything, from school clothes to appliances to your family Christmas portrait. Now, Sears is a great place to go if you want to be alone. But you better hurry. Sears used to have 3,500 stores, and now it has 5. Same thing happened to Playboy, except in silk pajamas and a captain's hat. For 66 years, Playboy magazine was also a fact of American life. Sears sold your father a mattress, and Playboy was what he hid under it.
Bill Maher keeps comparing the Democratic National Committee to Sears and Playboy for one very clear and devastating reason. He sees a cautionary tale in their rise and fall, noting that being a household name doesn't guarantee you a seat at the table forever. Both were once American icons, dominating their industries and shaping culture like few others in the 20th century. But when they failed to adapt to changing times and evolving customer demands, their relevance collapsed, leaving them as dusty shadows of their former selves. Maher warns the same could happen to the Democratic Party if it doesn't act fast and decisively to change its trajectory. Once a powerhouse with broad appeal, the DNC risks total stagnation if it keeps ignoring everyday Americans and clings to woke strategies that no longer connect with the heartland. You have to hear his breakdown of how Playboy lost its way, because the parallels to the modern DNC are absolutely staggering. Maher's analogy is more than clever. It's a desperate wake-up call, sharp, insightful, and infused with his signature humor, urging the party to evolve before it joins the ranks of political cautionary tales that no one visits anymore.
The basic problem we have in America is conservatives think the liberals are insane, and they're not completely wrong. Now, I don't think most liberals are insane, but neither do they make it clear they disapprove of the ones who are, and their cowardice in not marginalizing their own crazies has been their downfall. I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by doesn't make sense.
And this is exactly what drives Maher up the wall. The left's stubborn, almost religious refusal to face basic scientific facts and objective reality. He argues that many on the left are so wrapped up in their woke ideology that no amount of evidence, logic, or reason seems to penetrate their echo chambers. Facts take a back seat to feelings, and truth is filtered through the lens of personal belief and social standing rather than biological or economic reality. Maher sees this as both dangerous and absurd, pointing out that you cannot govern a country based on vibes alone. Policies, debates, and decisions are shaped not by data or successful outcomes, but by what feels right to a vocal, aggressive activist segment that doesn't represent the majority. It's no longer about solving problems or improving society for the many. It's about validating an identity and a very specific, narrow ideology. When a party starts denying what people can see with their own two eyes, they lose the right to lead, and Maher isn't afraid to say it. For Maher, privileging emotion over evidence isn't just frustrating to watch. It's a literal blueprint for national failure. Ignoring facts carries real, measurable, and often disastrous consequences that the American public is starting to get tired of paying for.
People ask me all the time, why haven't you ever had Hillary or Bill Clinton on? Why didn't you have Kamala on during the last campaign? You think we don't ask? We ask these people every week. They say no. It took 8 years and a petition to get Obama on. And these are people, all people I voted for. Think about that. They're afraid to come on the show of a guy who voted for them.
Here, Maher zeroes in on the Democratic establishment, dissecting their habit of avoiding spaces they don't control with an iron fist. From Hillary Clinton to Kamala Harris, he highlights the pattern of top Democrats declining invitations to unscripted, open conversations where they can't see the questions beforehand. Maher argues their refusal to appear on his show, or any show that might challenge them, isn't about busy schedules or logistics. It's about a deep-seated fear of real, authentic dialogue and the risk of saying something unvetted. These are leaders he's voted for and supported, yet they shy away from even friendly ground if it means facing tough questions from a centrist perspective. More concerningly, Maher warns this defensive stance reveals a party that no longer trusts its own message or its ability to connect directly with voters without a teleprompter. This bubble mentality is exactly why they are getting blindsided by election results that everyone else saw coming. When leaders hide behind handlers and PR teams instead of engaging honestly, the consequences are tangible. Credibility and public confidence erode until there's nothing left. Maher's critique isn't about personal loyalty. It's about a party drifting dangerously far from transparency and basic, winning political instincts.
I've been telling Democrats for years the Republicans are going to steal pot from you as an issue, and now Trump says...
We're looking at reclassification, and we'll make a determination.
What'd you expect? He is the master at winning votes from small groups who are passionate about one issue, picking up a couple percent here, a couple there, until on election night it's YMCA.
Unlike the Democrats, Donald Trump honed in on the issues that truly mattered to everyday Americans at the kitchen table. He tackled the challenges people faced in their daily lives: jobs, economic security, immigration, and national pride, with a raw passion that struck a deep chord with the forgotten man. Trump didn't get lost in abstract academic debates or fleeting cultural trends that only exist on social media. He spoke directly to the concerns of ordinary citizens, promising to make the country work for them again rather than for the global elite. That clarity and focus is exactly what people crave in a leader. Someone who listens, understands their pain, and takes visible action to improve their lives. While many politicians chase trends or radical ideological agendas, Trump's approach was rooted in the promise of practical results and tangible impact for the working class. The reason his base is so loyal isn't a mystery, and Maher explains exactly why the Democrats keep missing the point. Maher and others point out that this kind of direct connection builds a level of loyalty, trust, and support that optics can never buy. By prioritizing the real, material needs of Americans, he demonstrated that political relevance comes from serving the people, not the internal politics of a party.
In his first term, he signed an executive order banning TikTok and then got trounced by young voters. So in 24, he campaigned on saving it. And apparently every Tide Pod eater responded because his youth vote was up 21%. In his first term, he called cryptocurrency not money and based on thin air, and said it seems like a scam. And who better to know a scam? Well, that was then. Now he's on more coins than Julius Caesar. Overnight, he became the crypto candidate as opposed to Biden, the crypt keeper candidate.
Here, Maher highlights exactly how Trump managed to win back many voters he'd lost during the turmoil of his first term. Trump recognized that his original message wasn't fully resonating with younger voters or certain minority groups, and instead of doubling down on failure, he adapted his pitch. He refined his messaging, sharpened his focus, and spoke directly to concerns that cut across all age groups: economic opportunity, national strength, and future stability. He made sure his message connected with the actual electorate of 2024, not just the one from 2016. That adaptability proved decisive in swing states where every single percentage point mattered. Voters responded not just to his words, but to the fact that he was willing to listen, recalibrate, and meet them where they actually were, rather than where he wanted them to be. The Democrats' refusal to do the same is what Maher finds most infuriating about the current political landscape. In politics, Maher stresses that relevance is everything, and standing still is the same as moving backward. Trump's ability to evolve his message and re-engage disaffected voters ultimately paid off at the ballot box, proving that responsiveness, not rigid, unyielding ideology, is what actually wins elections.
Chalk up another 1 or 2%. Democrats used to own Silicon Valley. Those California do-gooder liberals who wanted to save the planet. Yeah, right. Trump came along and said, regulations? We don't need no stinking regulations. Not only did he win them over, in his second inauguration, they were all sitting up on the stage with him. There was an entire section that looked like the full range of the autism spectrum.
Trump also won over significant parts of the tech industry by rolling back the suffocating regulations that Democrats had heavily imposed on the sector. His reasoning was straightforward and resonated with the entrepreneurial spirit. Innovation flourishes when the government simply steps aside. By cutting regulatory burdens, Trump cast himself as a pro-growth leader who understood how businesses actually operate and what they need to succeed in a global market. Meanwhile, Democratic-led states, particularly California, have buried companies under endless layers of taxes, labor mandates, and impossible compliance rules. The outcome has been predictable and visually obvious to anyone living there: a mass exodus of talent. Major corporations and startups alike are leaving in search of friendlier environments where costs are lower and innovation isn't throttled by red tape and bureaucracy. If you've wondered why Silicon Valley is suddenly shifting to the right, this is the smoking gun Maher points to. Maher notes that this regulatory overreach has turned California from a tech powerhouse into a cautionary tale of what happens when ideology kills industry. Trump's deregulatory stance resonated not just with wealthy executives, but with workers who recognize that fewer restrictions often mean more jobs, higher wages, and real opportunity.
Elections are won on the margins by a coalition of little things that hit people personally. Trump gets this. He feels your pain in the Kamala ran on democracy, which is the most important issue. But without the political skill to sell it, it added up to nothing. Meanwhile, Trump was running on, I'll make the go down. He never shut up about bad shower pressure, light bulbs, and low-flow toilets.
According to Maher, Trump has always focused on fixing what's broken, not putting on a sophisticated political performance for the cameras. He zeroed in on tangible problems: border security, inflation, jobs, crime, and economic decline, and framed his leadership around solutions rather than empty symbolism. By contrast, Kamala Harris and much of the Democratic Party leadership seemed more concerned with theatrics, carefully staged moments, and pandering to the fringe left's latest demands. Instead of tackling kitchen table issues that affect everyday Americans' bank accounts, they leaned into cultural signaling and headline-grabbing gestures that looked good on social media but did nothing to lower the price of gas or groceries. Maher argues voters can easily tell the difference between real leadership and scripted political acting, and they are choosing the former. While Trump emphasized results and accountability, Democrats chased optics and ideological appeasement, leaving a massive vacuum of leadership in the center of the country. This gap, he warns, is costing them their credibility with the very people they need to win. Americans want their problems solved, not lectures delivered from a podium, and that contrast has become painfully clear at the ballot box in recent cycles. Maher's warning is blunt and unmistakable. Parties, like brands, only survive by listening to the people they claim to represent. Trump focused on fixing real problems and adapting his message to the moment. Democrats, meanwhile, drifted into theatrics, ideology, and cultural obsessions, and the voters noticed the shift. If the Democratic Party doesn't course correct and return to common sense soon, it risks fading into total irrelevance, becoming just another once-dominant force that failed to evolve with the times. And that brings us to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Bill Maher's latest warning, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos breaking down the biggest shifts in politics today.